Just keep writing, right? I know that sounds like bad advice. No, that's genuine advice. It sounds shit. I know it does. But writing is just like, I mean, you can burn yourself out if you write beyond what you're like capable of writing. So you shouldn't like try to write 4,000 words a day when you've previously never written in your life before. But writing is a habit thing. It's more habit than anything else in my experience. If you consistently write the same amount every day, it's writing as a job and like a job that you enjoy. Like if you write every day without fail, no breaks, it doesn't matter how you feel, you write, unless you're like dead or in the hospital or, really, really sick. Like every day, 500 words. You're not going to, at least in my experience, you probably won't burn out.
This is the Crit RPG Podcast, your one-stop shop for everything Lit RPG, progression fantasy, and Royal Road. Hi everyone, and welcome to the Crit RPG Podcast. This time another roundtable with Actus, Xkarnation, and CasualFarmer. This is going to be great because CasualFarmer just woke up, Actus is like way past his bedtime, and Xkarnation is sick and also way past his bedtime. So this is going to be awesome. But we are going to be talking about money and Patreon. And I kind of interrupted you, Actus. You were because you were mansplaining to CasualFarmer how to pay a Patreon.
Can you mansplain to another man?
I think yes.
Well,
I mean, you just did, so probably.
Yeah, that's a good point. I think Casual should go ahead and raise his minimum tier price to $25, and he should remove all of his bonus chapters. I think that would probably make his Patreon much better. I think if it was just a tip jar, with no bonus chapters, I think that would really increase your earnings.
I mean, when it was just a tip jar, it was what's it called, 8,000 a month. So
yeah, see, I know what I'm doing.
Oh my god!
Also, you spelled tears wrong.
I did.
You will also notice
the highest
Actus...
effort Patreon of all time. No, the second he gets past his bedtime, he just starts giggling, I guess.
Yeah, this is amazing. I'm not quite sure if I'm going to cut this out, so we'll see how this is going to go.
You spelled two. I mean, you just swapped the E and the I, so it's not really a big deal.
Yeah,
I want to see that.
I write professionally for a living.
So yep. I think the pecking order is: Casual bullies me, I bully Actus, Actus bullies Casual, and Xkarn. Do you feel like
sick?
Me? No one can bully me. It's fine.
No one can bully you because no one knows who you are.
Exactly.
Oh no.
No, don't say that. His Patreon has gone up like $2,000 in the past like week and a half. Bro is making money. He's cringe.
All right.
I'm depressed.
That is pretty good. That is
Patreon's going down.
I finally figured out how to do cliffs.
I forgot how to do cliffs.
And this is what we're going to be talking about today, among other things. So I would say without preamble, but there was a lot of preamble. I really hope you enjoyed that little bit of banter. But we have some questions today that we want to go through. And as usual, you've all been on this podcast before. We're literally just going to go into the questions and just see where they take us. And yeah, let's start off with reading them out. So the question today is how to write Webserials. That's a big topic. Then we have what's the differences in plot structure from traditional novels. Then the next one is how to avoid burnout with a regular posting schedule. The next one is how hard do you cliff? And if yes, how many? And then the next one is how many side stories and alternate POV chapters can you get away with? And the last one is what is a good price point? And these questions have been asked by the people who were on the last roundtable and have been voted on by my patrons. Because I've learned that actually you want to promote your Patreon that I have. You can go to my Patreon a lot. If you are my Patreon, you know that. Okay. So with that being said, let's go. First question. Differences in plot structure from traditional novels. If you want to write a web serial, that should go on Patreon.
I don't read traditional novels, so one of the other two can answer that.
You don't read at all.
Exactly, that's what I'm saying. So, I don't know the answer. I don't even know.
He hasn't read a book in years.
Okay. Which is tragic because how long are you out of school?
Me.
Don't talk about school. No.
Yeah. All right. So how about this? Casual, you start if you can.
Well, typically the chapters are shorter, I guess.
So far, so good.
Slika crying in the corner. 8,000 word
It's-
chapter.
Yeah, Slika's actually doing
Yeah.
like pretty long chapters, right?
Slika's built different. Don't copy Slika.
Well, then in that case, there's
Slika's
absolutely
too cool.
nothing.
Wait. Sorry, Casual?
I said, well, in that case, the difference is basically absolutely nothing. It's just that the books are longer.
Yeah. Right.
I think
And
you
I'm
can
also
meander.
wondering. That's
In
true.
Webserials, you can meander a lot more, and you can kind of Webserials can kind of take their time with the things that trad novels have to skip over. But if you take too much time, then you're gonna fall off course. Your novel's gonna suck. So you can take some time, but not too much time. I'm sure that helps.
I think
Actually-
the novels that get too bogged down in side quests are often the ones that have inconsistent Patreons, or ones that have like lull periods. You can see on people's Graftions when a novel entered a meandering side quest arc, because you'll see the Patreon either flatlines or starts dying. Whereas I think web series aren't actually that far from traditional novels in terms of structure.
I think the main part
you got to keep the
differ-
engagement. You got to keep there's an engagement loop, which is the 3x structure, right? And web series kind of just automatically follow it, because you introduce a new threat, you deal with the threat, there's the big fight, resolution, and then there's the awful part that every web serial author has, where you've used up all your plot threads and now you have to come up with new ones, and you have to actually sit down and plot for like a bit. It's terrible.
I think the biggest noticeable difference in the plot structures, at least for me, is the fact that web serials have to give the feeling that they're never going to end, even if they do have an entirely planned ending. Web serials generally, they're much longer, so you have to kind of, if everything in your story builds up to beating the big bad like it commonly does in traditional novels. I mean, if you stretch on the fight with the big bad, you could probably pull it off. But generally, the moment that big bad dies, if that's the only thing you've built up toward, and you've wrapped everything up in a neat little bow, well, your web serial's done. You're dead. It's over. So you can't really. It's just a trad novel. So, which isn't wrong, but you can't extend the novel after that. If you wrap up everything and you haven't introduced your new plot points, people will just stop reading because the novel feels finished.
That being said, it's also important to kind of know how to actually introduce new plot points. I mean, have you guys watched the Blacklist?
No. I don't watch movies.
It's a series.
Oh.
Okay. It's a series with James Spader, and the first 3 seasons are actually quite a masterclass in how to tie together different arcs, because they foreshadow certain side players that are coming in that then become more important later on, and it feels as though there's this ever expanding universe. But then at some point, in the 3rd or 4th season, they kind of jump the shark. I felt like, at least, many
you
of
have
these.
To do that. It's a web serial. If you don't jump the shark at some point and start doing something completely different than what you promised and lose all of your readers, you're not doing it right.
That is facetious. What's that word? Facetious? Facetious? No, wait.
That was probably facetious.
Yeah, thank you. Exactly right. So that's the issue. You don't want to jump the shark. You really don't. But how do you pull this apart to this length, right? That's important question.
You just stick to whatever your novel's promise is. Literally, right as you start writing the novel, you should write down in a list what are your novel's promises. For example, in mine, if the guy stopped being a tree and started just got a human form and started walking around, it would kill the novel. That's a promise.
Yeah.
So you just outline whatever the promises are, and you just stick to your guns, basically. We'll just keep going.
Yeah.
It's also why Zanzibar, I think, has the new realm bullshit. Whenever you're kind of out of plot threads, you just go to ascend to the next realm.
Yeah.
It's to fix this exact issue where you just run out of plot threads. So you're fuck it, we're in a new. It's basically we're isekaiing ourselves to another fucking realm, basically.
Do you think a murder of the week thing would work?
No.
In the RPG?
What's the murder of the week?
Why not?
It means case of the week, like Dresden Files in the very beginning. Oh wait, you don't read. Just every there's every it's a bunch of small interconnected stories that don't really have anything to do with each other. It's just, deal with one thing at a time, and then you have the next one. The problem is prog fantasy generally needs to continue growing and scale.
That's true. Again, like we can look at kind of like at a TV series that did this well, right? I mean, like anime did this super well, I think, because like One Piece, that basically is like a case of the week story-ish, because like for the filler episodes, right? They're always in a different kind of like island that it has like very little to do with the main plot, but they're still like growing in strength somewhat or somehow. So that could kind of work. But now that you're mentioning it, like it's hard
But
to see that working.
Everyone hates the filler episodes in One Piece.
That's true.
Yeah,
that's true. Casual?
Like the only good filler episode was what's it, G13 or whatever.
Oh, that one was good, yeah.
And the rest of it is just, why is this so boring? It's like 10 minutes of three dudes staring at each other while the drum theme plays.
The drum theme does go hard, I will say.
I have to watch that. Like I haven't watched One Piece. I've read it, so there isn't.
You can watch One Piece.
One Piece.
It's like it's edited One Piece where they've like removed a ton of the filler, and it's just like, it's the core of One Piece. I don't know how far along they are, but they're pretty far along, I think.
Next question, absolutely. Because I think though, there is a little bit of a difference to like traditional stuff, because you want to be nesting those arcs way more than you would in like traditional novels, right? Where every like novel has like an endpoint, like a definite endpoint. But it also kind of goes together with like the slice of life stuff that we can kind of put in there. All right. Avoiding burnout with a regular posting schedule.
Just keep writing, Brian. I know that sounds like bad advice. No, that's genuine advice. It sounds shit. I know it does. But writing is just like burnout. I mean, you can burn yourself out if you write beyond what you're like capable of writing. So you shouldn't like try to write 4,000 words a day when you've previously never written in your life before. But writing is a habit thing. It's more habit than anything else in my experience. If you consistently write the same amount every day, and granted, this advice is coming from the perspective of writing as more than a hobby. It's writing as a job, and like a job that you enjoy. Like if you write every day without fail, no breaks, it doesn't matter how you feel, you write, unless you're like dead or in the hospital or, really, really sick. Like every day, 500 words. You're not going to, at least in my experience, you probably won't burn out. There's going to be days when it's way harder. Like recently I started taking weekends off, which was the first actual break I've taken in, I don't remember when I started like writing like this, 3 or 4 years, I think. Like the first break I've taken. In the last year or so, I've been writing 4,000 to 6,000 words a day, without fail. I didn't burn out at any point. And when I took the weekends off, I just started writing a different novel on the weekends. So
I think, call me crazy, but Actus might be a unique case.
Yes,
I think weaponized mental damage.
He's laughing and he's actually proving your point. This is funny.
He's actual joke laughing.
Yeah. No, like I think so. I mean, I've had like real burnout, like quote unquote real burnout. I've worked myself to the bone in my like real life job twice, right? So like that point where you literally just can't do anything anymore. You're just lying on the couch, and like even that is hard. Like that's a really fucking spot, like bad spot you don't want to go to. And I don't like mean to like minimize anyone who like felt like crap and couldn't write anymore. And like it's a huge case of writer's block, and everything just feels shit, because like we all love writing. That's why we're doing it. Like some of us, like everyone except for me in this room, is just getting paid for it, right? So it's a bit of a difference there. But what I can recommend is that whenever writing starts feeling really bad, it sometimes might be a plot issue. So you might actually be hitting like writer's block because your plot isn't like coherent with where you want it to go, and that might actually suck. But
it's a lot easier to write when you're excited for what you're writing, and a lot of the times when I'm I'm feeling writer's block. I don't actually think writer's block is real. I think what writer's block is just you haven't figured out what you're doing next, and you haven't put the mental energy into figuring out what you're doing next. And because of that, your brain is seizing up, and it's like, I don't want to move forward because I don't know what's going on. So writer's block isn't really real. It's just sort of like you just need to take steps to eliminate it. And one is like coming up with a scene in the future that you're super excited about. And you'll find a lot of things fall into place to make that scene happen. Like if you're like, all right, I want my main character to have like an evil eye skill, and this exact scene that I saw in an anime once would be really cool, right? So you take the steps for your MC to kill the things it needs, get the materials, whatever the hell, to do it. And because you're now excited about the reward, you don't mind writing out the steps that it takes to get there. But for burnout, I think you literally just find whatever is your maximum posting schedule and post like maybe one chapter below that. Or you posted I posted like 5 chapters a week for like months on end, which was my kind of, I'd say, beyond my maximum posting schedule. It was like really, because I was writing on the weekends. I never like was taking like time off because I was always like trying to keep up. I think the second I went from 5 chapters a week to 4 chapters a week, it felt like I was retired. It felt like I was chilling. It felt so easy, especially. And then when I jumped down to 3 chapters a week, it really felt like I was like doing absolutely zero work.
It's because you are retired.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, now I do like 3-4 chapters a week, and it's just like a lot more. Because when compared to a previous grinding period, it feels so much less. It's so much harder to feel burnt out because it feels like so much less work than before.
I think burnout, it depends. When we're talking about burnout, I think there's a valid, burnout isn't always necessarily even coming from the writing. You could be burnt out because of shit that's happening in life, and that's kind of washing over into creativity. I can't talk at all about that because that's obviously going to be, unique to everyone and, their life, what's going on in their life at the moment. But I do agree with XK with regard to writer's block. I don't think it exists. I mean, in addition to everything he said, all of my advice and the way I look at writing is generally writing with intention, not just writing. If you're just, and I'm guilty of this myself, when I stop, when I get like deadlines and I'm not thinking and you start yapping when you're writing and you end up writing, 40,000 words of an arc that nobody gives a shit about. And you're like, crud. Yeah. And then the arc starts really sucking and you kind of have to sit there like, well, this is worthless. Yeah. This whole arc is bad.
And then
you have to
go back. Yeah.
You have to
I mean,
avoid...
I would go back. You wouldn't, so.
No, I'd go back. I've in Runebound, I've rewritten, not 40,000 words, but I've rewritten like 20,000 words of content in entire spots before. More toward the beginning of the novel than more recently. Because I think the slowest part of the novel was somewhere around in book 2. Where I was just kind of writing, and then I realized I'd spent 40,000 words on a training arc that wasn't even super relevant. I mean, it was like character development moments, but it was not necessary for all intents and purposes. So since then, I've tried to be a lot more intentional. It's easy to start wasting time and, end up maybe not burning out, but end up feeling writer's block because like XK said, you're stuck. Yeah, your readers are burnt out and then you're sitting over there with an arc that you don't really care about, but you're so far deep into that you have to finish it. So it's better to, even if you're a pantser, to just have an idea of where you're going and make sure you don't accidentally forget it because you'll dig a hole for yourself really fast and and that's when you're gonna start feeling like, I have writer's block, I'm burnt out. And sometimes it's now you just wrote a shit arc and you just need to get yourself out of it. Make something. Just have some random shit happen. It's Webserial.
What about casual?
Or just end the arc, right? Because I definitely have like this infamous log 3.16, like a single chapter that just kept expanding and expanding and expanding because like I had stress in real life. I was like really stressed in my company and the work that I was doing. So I just kept, like you said, like my brain was empty. Just like kept typing words, and like cool numbers go up, right? But it was basically 30,000 words of the same emotional cycle over and over and over again because I just kept forgetting that I already like did this and then wrote a new chapter. So definitely. But
what about Casual, like XK said?
Yeah, I was about to ask Casual.
I do actually quite agree on the like burnout side of stuff. Like it is mostly like stuff in your life that's happening and like not really knowing where you're going, rather than like actually having like writer's block and stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I'm lucky with the not like writing 10,000 words that you don't use, because I'm actually pretty lazy. So I'm not going to be writing 10,000 extra words that I don't use. It's like too much work not doing that.
Oh no, I still use them. Almost, I think, like even if you have like a cruddy arc, a lot of the time if it's not like stupidly long, and it's just kind of, it's a side effect of writing a web serial with frequent posts. It can happen. You just need to make sure it doesn't happen too much.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Cool. But I kind of want to, like, in that same vein, ask another question, if that's okay. And it's easy to say like, hey, just lower your writing schedule. But I know so many people, especially like new writers or people who are new to web serials, that have a lot of fear of lowering their writing schedule. Not like for some people it might be okay, I will like get less readers because they will, I'll be on the front page less often. Some people will say like, oh, I don't want to disappoint people. And I'm kind of wondering how each of you deals with those thoughts and those emotions, if you have them at all.
By writing more. I might not be the right one for this.
I took a lot of convincing from me for Actus to drop from 7 chapters a week to 5 to take
14 to 10. I write.
Yeah, because that's 14 to 10.
Yeah.
You're writing 2 novels at once.
Because
he
was literally convinced that just his Patreon was going to halve and everyone was going to leave. He was dead ass convinced. He was like, yeah, if I stop posting on weekends, I see people in Discords, they say that they love my novel because I post on weekends while all the other lazy authors take weekends off, so they're all going to leave me because that's my one unique selling point, and no one's going to. And then he did it, and then nothing happened. He literally just post less and nothing, and absolutely nothing happened.
But then I felt bored, so I started writing more. But
that's okay though. But it's a difference if you're like choosing to write, or if you feel like you have to,
You should never
like
set a schedule that you can't. Like, I could have continued the 7 a week for both if I really wanted to, but it got to the point in both novels, and it was the thing we were just talking about, where I was like, okay, I'm out of the original plot points that I had completely laid out and prepared were largely consumed for Rimbound, and we're getting close to it for Living Forge. So I was like, okay, I can't. I realized I couldn't actually keep the schedule I was on without starting to meander, which is why I was like, okay, I kind of have to lower it a little bit just so I can think more. But Casual's been writing.
Schedule,
Wait.
Yeah, what's
I was gonna say that, and no life writing a novel can like get stuff done and like it can feel really good. You need to have those breaks in between so that you can get like more inspiration and like actually interact with people so that your dialogue gets better.
Yeah. That's the main reason. Like you talk to people because the dialogue needs to get better. No, I'm kidding.
No. That's a good strat.
It's a very good strat.
Talking to people is hard, so just write more instead.
Yeah.
But I find that like a lot of writing quite often is inspired by like experiences that you've had in real life. So you need like a bit of a mix of both of those. Yeah,
totally. I as much as I love, like I said, like just sitting in my apartment, just like numbers going up, like typing words. It's the talking to people that actually interests me the most in writing, which is stupidly counterintuitive. But I love talking to writers. I love listening to their stuff. And have I maybe put some people's like what they said in my book? Maybe. It was fun, and it's like a nice throwback, and that also like helps you enjoy what you're doing when you're writing again, right? Sometimes it could be nice. But last but not least, like I've been watching some, Pirate Software. He's getting recommended to me on YouTube a lot, right? And I watched him in a talk with Dr. K from Healthy Gamer, and they basically talked about how important it is to have like downtime and idle time, because like you just need that in order to like process your emotions and other kind of stuff. And as much as people don't want to talk about it, writing is a very emotional process because you are going through a lot of emotions and just like kind of living them and putting them on the page. Whether that is like in progression fantasy just success, or it can also be like triumph or tragedy or whatever. You kind of have to have like a rich wealth of experience if you really want to hit that next level, I feel like, as a writer.
Yeah.
So cool. So, well, Actus, like, you were kind of joking by saying like, hey, I write more, but the question really is, when you were going from 7 to 5, right? You needed convincing. So what was it that convinced you?
You're not going to like the answer because I wanted to write more.
Okay. No, that's fine.
My overall answer, my overall goal was to increase the total amount of words I can write. And that's twofold. The first is long-term writing. I didn't want to get myself into a spot in Runebound where, or Living Forge, where I realized I was in a crappy arc and the novel would just die to the point where I couldn't justify writing it anymore. So, taking a little extra time and over the weekends to not write it so I can refresh my ideas on them kind of gives me the opportunity to make sure I can continue writing them later. So more words long term. And also freeing myself up on the weekends means I can write anything I want. So I increased my words on weekends as well. So to higher than what they were before. So it kind of worked for both. I can't do that again because I can only ever write 3 novels at once. So I'm out of
tragedy.
Get out of jail free cards.
Yeah. Like
What do you mean you're writing 4?
Oh yeah, I forgot. Okay, I can only write 4 novels at once. But I'm a little slow on one of them, so that one doesn't count. I'm more interested to hear what Casual does, because he's been writing the same novel for as long as I've written like 3. That's a lot harder, because I run out of ideas at that point, I think.
So, like, with my schedule, at first I was doing, like, every day a week, but I was quite sick, so I really started to feel strained, so that's why I dropped down. And then after that, it was getting back into life. But for Boyer of Chicken, I don't know, the ideas just don't stop flowing. Like, I guess I find Slice of Life easier in that way, simply because, like, a day at the farm isn't like a wasted chapter or a filler chapter. That's what a bunch of people are there for. So you can take like a slow chapter and just like have people just doing things, and then that's a good chapter. People like it. So
yeah,
definitely, it feels
so
relaxing
you're writing
to write
farming
those.
One Piece, basically.
Well, except that people are actually there for it. Like, if you're looking at, I don't know, like I've never watched it, but like, soap operas or something like that, they are literally just all like 100% just filler. It's just people talking to other people about emotions and stuff that shouldn't be a problem in the first place.
Every episode ends on a cliffhanger. Yeah,
exactly. Sometimes quite ridiculously if you're looking at the Mexican telenovelas.
So you have read
them. But that's what they are, telenovelas. Right? Mm-hmm. Oh yeah, like Mexican telenovela supercuts are works of art. Like, you won't believe the kind of shit that happens in Mexican telenovelas. Like, it's like, step away, Lit RPG. Like, that's like not even close to being as entertaining as that particular brand of TV. You should look it up on YouTube. It's actually quite cool. Let's jump to the next question, actually. How hard do you cliff? That's a good segue. And how do you cliff hard? Actually, I think that's another good question.
So I actually try not to cliffhanger. Like, unless it's like a bigger arc that like you want like the dun dun dun, and then you want people to read the next one. It makes the cliffs more impactful. I feel like when there's a big cliffhanger, then all of a sudden it's like, oh boy. But if there's cliffhangers every chapter, then people get tired of getting cliffed.
That's an interesting way to approach it. I think I could be wrong here. I think something like that definitely works a lot better for a slice of life story, strictly because it, like, the vibes readers want when they're going to slice of life is kind of like the happy, relaxed. Doesn't really jive super well with constant hard cliffs. I cliff every chapter as hard as I possibly can every time. Partially because it's good for retention. But the main reason I think I cliff is because it makes it easier for me when I have a cliff at the end of a chapter, the next chapter is more fun to write because I already have something I'm looking. It's not quite the level of cliff that the readers have, because the readers are like, they don't know what's going to happen, so they want to know, and so they're all like, "Oh, stop clipping us, Actus. It's annoying."
But then you don't, and then they go like, "Why is it so boring?" Yeah.
Yeah, and I mean, I just ignore those comments, or they fuel me because it means they're invested. And also, when I end a chapter in a cliff, the next chapter, like, I'm excited to write it because like I know what's going to happen, or I'm looking forward to writing it, or looking forward to seeing reactions. So cliffs help me write faster because I know I have something to look forward to.
Actus?
Yeah.
Actus. Sorry, Xkarn. I sometimes do that. It's easy to see why.
We look nothing alike.
Excuse me. All right. Do we need to put the picture again?
No, keep it. Banish that picture.
Yeah.
And that picture.
If you're, maybe I will post that picture just on Patreon. That's how you get Patreon.
No.
Good cliffhanger.
Yeah. All right, Xkarn, sorry, you go.
Cliffhangers are weird. I've been trying to figure out how to do cliffhangers like for the last year. No, 2 years. So basically since I started Tree, I've been trying to figure it out. And what I've kind of noticed is you can write. I've tried to increase my output. I've tried to grow Patreon, right? I've tried to increase my output. I've increased the number of chapters ahead. I've done everything like to try and see what grows Patreon the most. And literally this month, I've uploaded the least chapters I've ever uploaded. My backlog is at the lowest it's ever been. I'm 10 chapters below where I used to be. At one point, I was almost 30 ahead, and now I'm less than 20. And yet, my Patreon has grown 20% so far this month, just because of cliffs. I'm in an arc at the moment where it's basically I'm doing the exact same thing that Kurpon actually did, the Runesmith author. So a few months ago, we noticed that his Patreon actually doubled in size within a single month. And his Patreon had been completely steady. He'd gained, his Patreon had literally been flatlined for months. And we were like, right, what has he done? How did his Patreon just double overnight? And we looked at the chapters, and basically we worked out that his main character was a low-key blacksmith, never went outside, never challenged anyone. And then suddenly, out of the blue, he like challenged a noble and went into like a tournament and like basically like flexed on everyone, right? So up until then, he'd been very low-key, like only a few people knew how strong he was, but now he just out in the open like did a big flex. I was like, okay, cool, that's great. So I did the same thing, and those chapters have just hit Railroad now. And for 3 days straight, I gained between 60, like on one day I gained like 60 patrons, another day like 40. So I've seen the most explosive growth I've ever seen by basically doing the same thing. I basically just have my main character just basically appear on the world stage and flex. And that's what caused the same thing. So that's just, the problem is that's only like a one-time use kind of cliff. It's a very powerful one, but it's basically where your main character does something completely against. It's basically it only really works when it's a hidden character coming into that into the spotlight. And you can only really do that once. You can kind of rehash it a few times, but it doesn't really work that often. So I'm trying to figure out how to do like other like power up cliffs, drama cliffs, how to do them. But yeah, I don't think it's like, it's not the number of cliffs you do. It's how powerful the cliffs are that matters, I think.
Yeah.
How well thought out they are, how well they're built up to. Yeah, that's my thought on cliffs.
It's like the tournament arc for Beware of Chicken. Like, I gained a whole bunch of people during the tournament arc. And I actually retained quite a lot of them, which is nice.
Are we maybe thinking about this like the wrong way? Because we shouldn't be thinking about this in a way of cliffs, but in a way of hype, right?
Yeah.
So
no, cliffs. Hype is important, but you still, if the hype, if we're strictly speaking, like if we're ignoring every other benefit of cliffs and only talking about Patreon conversion, hype is good, and it's part of what will convert patrons. But generally, the thing that pushes people who are hyped, but are just if they're reading along and they're really enjoying it and they're hyped, but there's no cliff, all the time they're not going to pull the trigger and go to Patreon. It's usually when there's a really cool cliff or there's something they're really looking forward to that's finally going to happen. That's usually when they pull the trigger. And then from then on out, hype and, good storytelling and, all the rest of the stuff is going to be what keeps them on Patreon. But I think cliffs are usually what cause people to pull the trigger.
Yeah. Because I was thinking like what Xkarn said, like the appearing on the world stage kind of thing, right? That is kind of a way to generate hype in the story, because it's a huge moment, right? It's where you bring in the orchestra if it were a TV show. At the same time, I think the mixture might be the thing, right? So you have
it's the promise that
cool
your readers are like sitting there like, oh, okay, he's finally going to do the thing. He's finally revealing his power. Yeah. So it's the anticipation.
Yeah, and so like in theory, towards the end of your story, you should always be like the end of the arc. You should always be picking up more Patreons, right?
Depends on the
arc.
Yeah, it depends on the arc, and it depends if you're. I mean, if it's an arc that's kind of wrapping things up, you could definitely be seeing a dip in Patreons before like your next one gets started, and you start pulling them into the next one. And if you don't do it, if you don't like transition arcs well, it could be it.
It also depends on your novel's reward structure. Like if you have a system in place where your main character gets rewarded at the end of every challenge, kind of like in Primal Hunter and stuff, oftentimes multiple tier rewards and stuff. Like Primal Hunter was a good example. I think in the introductory like tutorial arc, everyone got like these credits or something for like fighting. So you knew that at the end of the arc there was going to be a big reward and a big reveal. And he got like the most credits. So that was like hyped up throughout the entire like arc. So obviously when it got towards the end of the arc, people were Patreoning, right? But the moment people Patreon the most was when the tutorial ended. He'd gotten all of his rewards and he was returning to Earth. They weren't Patreoning when he was getting his rewards. They weren't Patreoning as much when like you were approaching the end of the arc. They literally started all Patreoning right when it was like, oh, Jake is now really OP and he's about to step back on Earth and do shit. Right? That's when everyone was like, oh my god, this is so hype, because that's the cliff, not the rewards, not the end of the arc, not it's the promise of what's about to happen.
Doing cool shit.
The next arc.
Yeah, which brings me towards
about the next arc. Yeah.
It is time. I've done it. I finally launched Genesis of the Sacred Machine, my own little book, in its definitive edition. So, if you want to, you can check it out right now on Railroad. There's a link below the video. Other than that, I really hope you're enjoying this podcast and I could use some of your support. Go check out our Patreon, or maybe just leave a like, a follow, or whatever it is on the platform that you're on. Anyway, thank you so much, and let's get on with the show. Which brings me towards foreshadowing, right? I think this is like Casual was always saying, it like skill issue. I think one of the things that I'm weakest at is the foreshadowing of cool rewards that are going to come, right? I mean, basically the first my entire first book in its current iteration that's on Road like right now is just the entire tutorial, and I stretched it way too long, and like the cool shit that I was thinking about was only happening in book 2. So I think having good foreshadowing of what's going to happen, which is, for example, really easy if you have like quests, right? You do the quest, you get like really cool thing, like dangling a carrot in front of the main character and thus also the reader. I think is important if you want to actually have, well, any cliff conversion, right? Because if you just cliff and no one cares about it, that doesn't do anything, right? So it's this mixture of like building hype and then having cliffs, I think.
Yeah.
Cool. Good. Mystery solved. Nice. Casual though, if you're writing more, well, slice of life stuff, have you found something that actually like converts people more
I'm gonna be honest
than
here.
cliffs?
99% of the time I just don't look at it.
Okay. That makes sense.
I'm
Shows up
locked in.
vibes. He's
I'm in
vibing.
my lane. I'm locked in, just writing, and it works.
That's very, very. Actually, that's quite.
The
That's
true
quite wholesome.
strategy is
Actually, I like that.
is to ignore everything else and fucking send it.
Yeah, yeah. Hey, like I will say it again. Like when I relaunched the last time, so for the current version on Royal Road, well, the last version at this point because I'm going to relaunch again. Then I didn't look at anything. I tried to challenge myself to not look at Royal Road for as long as I possibly could, unless there was like an emergency, like a chapter was like uploaded in the wrong order or whatever. And I've actually managed 31 days without looking on Royal Road, opening notifications or anything. It was amazing. It felt great because I didn't feel as though I had to like read all these like first 10 chapter comments. You know what I mean? Right?
Yeah.
The first 10 chapters where everyone's like, "Oh, this kind of sucks," like because this is not exactly the story I want, and you let it get to you. So can highly recommend not giving a fuck. Like really
Don't
highly
read reader
recommend
comments.
doing that.
Don't read comments. Read trends. Individual comments are worthless. Exactly. The problem is you want to be looking for trends in comments. If 20 people say you did something bad, chances are you did something bad. Although sometimes they haven't identified the thing you've actually done bad correctly. Like if 20 people say you have bad characterization, it doesn't necessarily mean you have bad characterization, although you might. But it could also just mean that you did something that the genre doesn't like, and so people are saying you have bad characterization.
I think
like when it. I was going to say a good example of this is I was screwing around a little bit in Gleam, which is a novel where the main character's whole thing is being kind, and he gets to a bunch of loot, and then he only takes a single piece and leaves because he doesn't want to take too much from other people, which is a really stupid idea to do. I was well aware people wouldn't like it, and I only did it because that novel's my for fun novel. I'm not trying to make money off of it. I'm just, it's literally just for fun, and that's it. And that was an objectively bad idea. And I did get like 20 people going, "Oh my god, this character's so stupid." It's like, no, he's not stupid. He just did something that the genre hates, which you shouldn't do. You shouldn't intentionally antagonize the genre if you're trying to make money from it. But if you're just having fun.
That second part is very important. Yeah, it's not like you could try and write a novel that actually like ticks off everyone.
No one will read
it. Some people will,
but
not as many that you can actually live off of it.
Yeah.
But yeah. Okay, cool. Well, in that case, let's move on to the next one. How many side stories and alternate POV chapters can you get away with? Farmer?
This one's for him.
All of them.
Answer is yes.
So in my book, most chapters, so like there's the main character, the two main characters, basically Jin and Big D the rooster, and then like a lot of time, like every other chapter is from somebody else's point of view. Let me tell you, I think Travis might hate me.
I don't think he does.
He definitely does.
Travis? No.
Because there's like so many different people that he has to like do the different voices for, and like, but yeah. I think the only thing Travis doesn't like is that if there's like a throwaway character that he has to like pick a voice for, and then like okay, good. But that's it depends on what you're doing. Like if you're in the middle of a high stakes, like super tense thing, like going back to somebody else who's not involved with it, not a good idea. But if it's like somebody else and like your main character just did something awesome and you want to see it from somebody else's perspective to see how awesome that actually was, then yes. But
I think it does a lot better on Amazon because multiple lead characters, the tag on Railroad is the worst performing tag on Railroad, I think.
Except for Harem.
I don't think Harem is a tag.
Isn't it?
Is it?
Romance?
Oh, it is. I think.
Yeah.
Harem might
Go on.
ironically. Harem literally does better. I'm looking at it right now. Harem has more higher followed fics than multiple lead.
Whoa.
I think personally, as a reader, I just don't like. I'm a little brain rotted. I don't like multiple lead fics. I want to see my main lead. I don't really care about other characters. That said, alt POV chapters where your main character is doing something really badass are always really cool. I abuse the hell out of those. They're one of my favorite ways to frame like any power reveal chapter. It's just when you do it from someone else's POV, it's always really fun. But I do a lot of like alt POV chapters scattered throughout the stories, but because most of what I write is, I mean, I like a lot of slice of life stuff, but because generally the main focus isn't just pure slice of life, it's hard to get away with a lot of alt POV chapters because, you know,
I think it's fine. I have about half my chapters are alt POV.
But you're writing Dungeon Core.
Yeah. I think in non-human, I guess in non-human books in general, it's you have, because honestly, one of the coolest things is a character reacting to the main character being monstrous, and you need alt POVs for that. So yeah, it's probably not as good.
I think it's an author thing for a big portion of it. Like Casual gets away with it really well. You get away with it. You don't even have like. Tree hasn't been seen in half of your chapters. Stella is like the main character half the time.
He hasn't. There was an entire arc where he wasn't seen for like 30,000 words.
Yeah, no, I would lose all my readers if I did that. But it's also just because it's a very different type of story. Like, I personally start going, like, I'm happy to do like arcs where the main character is pulling at stuff from the shadows and he's not necessarily the focus. But I know I would lose patience with my own book if he wasn't one of the main characters wasn't the focus of it for more than 3 chapters in a row. Even that is a lot. I would generally try to avoid like a lot of alt POV chapters in a row at all times, but especially early on in the book. I'll only do like 1 or 2 together. Separate, they have purpose. You have to use them intentionally. It's a tool.
Yeah.
But at least for me, I think Casual. When I was reading Beware of Chicken, I noticed a lot of them, and they worked pretty well. So I think it might just be like an author technique thing.
Yeah, it also depends on how early you start them. So if you start the book with alternating POVs, then it's easier to keep on doing alternating POVs, and people don't get bored of them. Meanwhile, if you followed your main character for like 50 chapters, then all of a sudden there's an alt POV chapter, it might like jar people, I guess.
I think
it's like it's a promise thing.
Yeah.
It's a promise.
Yeah, promise.
Right? You're making a promise that like this is a story about this person, and then you're invested in this person. And then if you suddenly like switch a POV to a person who at the first part might be less interesting, right? Suddenly everyone's like, when are we going back to the good shit? But because I really hate success, I also write a like multiple POV fic, right? So and I think that actually does really well. Because it's set up like a musical beat, right? You have like if you have a song, it's not always the same beat, right? So sometimes have like a different kind of beat or a different melody, and they kind of like mix with each other. But I think one thing that's super important is to not have too many chapters where the main characters is kind of like go and do their own thing and then not bring them back together really quickly. I think that's a big issue.
There's a big difference between having a multiple POV novel in which you have multiple lead characters with multiple actual POVs that are consistently like equally as important level of POVs versus having a novel where you have other POV chapters, but they're not the main character and there's no confusion about whether the main character or not. As a reader, the second one I'm completely fine with. I'm usually willing to tolerate like one side POV, like one main POV, one like side lead POV, like male love interest, female love interest type of thing, regardless of the order. After that, I'm dropping the book. I do, yes.
You what?
But like, I'll drop the book if there's more than one or if there's more than like 2 full focal POVs, and even then. Generally, I won't even touch a book if it's got 2. I want one focal POV and then the others, you can put them in there. But like a lot of Royal Road readers, if I see the multi-POV tag, I'm not even reading the book. It just doesn't fit what I'm looking for. I'm too brain rotted. I want to self-insert into the lead character, and if the lead character's not in, if I'm not in his head a lot of the time, my brain rot takes over, and I'm like, nope, it's a different book. I don't want it.
But what if there's two main characters? No, I got you.
Gets harder. I think it's still possible, but at least for me, and again, I have brain rot. If that isn't already established.
Yeah. I think like what I want to write in that one novel with the multiple POVs is a story where the party is the main character. You know what I mean? So it's more about like what the party does, and then having several points of view of what they're doing and describing the same thing happening through several like points of view. I think it's kind of fun, and maybe that's why it hits so well at least until now. So we'll see. Okay. So Casual's answer is just like yes, and for Actus it's no, and for
Xkarn is maybe.
Yeah, Xkarn and myself are like maybe. Yeah, but I think I think we discussed pretty well the different techniques you can use in order to kind of pull it off if it's absolutely necessary. You really don't want to. You don't want to bring it on someone as a surprise. Is like I think the biggest thing, because that feels kind of weird and icky, I guess.
It breaks the promise.
It breaks the promise. Yeah, there you go. So you gotta like do the promise well. Like if you have like downtime and then kind of pull people on it, I think that's kind of okay, right? So main character's like sick anyway, and nothing's happening. Then you can do a POV switch.
Well, you generally don't want to have this position where absolutely nothing's happening, but if you're doing a POV switch to start something again, maybe depends on the story.
Yeah. If you have for example, you have like a cool side character that many people love, right? And MC gets incapacitated in some way, shape, or form. And then we switch into the side character for like 3 chapters at most. And then they like help the main character, and the main character like comes back even stronger than before. I think that kind of work. I think
it's an execution thing, but it could definitely work.
Yeah. Execution is a good point. It's like anyway. So, what's a good price point?
Well, technically speaking, Casual is the most successful here, but his pricing is
so a tip jar.
Tip jar is the strat.
I did $1, $5, $10, and then a joke tier of $20 because I didn't actually believe. So when I started Patreon, I didn't actually believe like anyone would join. So I was like, okay, let's make it cheap. And I didn't have any advanced chapters, so it's just literally here's the tip jar. Like if you like Beware of Chicken, put money in. And then that went exceedingly well. And then I started doing it. And then the day I started doing advanced chapters, my earnings quadrupled. So yeah,
awesome.
I think generally, if you want to go by the standard, XK and I both copied our standards pretty much. Usually
$10,
and honestly, $10 should be your main tier, and you should have something around. The actual number of words you have kind of ranges based on how long your chapters are. But your $10 tier, if you have one story, should probably be something around like at the bare minimum 20 chapters. I think that's a little low,
15.
But if your chapters are super long,
you can do bare minimum 15.
Yeah.
15 to 50 is what you want.
Casual's like giggling.
Casual might be an exception, or maybe it's just a skill issue. It could just be a skill issue.
Looking at Slika on Array, they both have like varying degrees. I forget who it was that also had like 2 to 5 that did like really well. But I'm gonna look it up later.
If we're giving advice on a general term to readers or to writers as a whole, first off, Slika is an absolute god, but attempting to copy anything Slika does is likely to end in terrible tragedy. Slika is just built different. I mean,
the problem is when you have a $5 tier, most of it gets eaten up by Patreon fees. Like from a $5 tier, you make something like $2 or something. But if you have a $10 tier, you make $7 of it. So if you just do the maths, you'd have to get like 3 $5 tier Patreons to equal 1 $10. So the question is, will you get 3 times more Patreons by having a $5 tier instead of 10? Probably not. So 10 is just better.
Well, I think sometimes like what I've noticed is that if you have like a $1, a $5, and a $10 tier, most people will actually like get the $5 one and then want to continue to read on and then go into the $10 tier.
The majority of my
So I
patrons
think
go straight
maybe
into the $10 tier.
Yeah, I think that's fine, right? The biggest issue I have like with having different tiers and Patreon is just the admin. Like it just takes forever.
The admin.
Like,
Admin's infuriating. It's so annoying.
Yeah. But,
especially when you have
we can
multiple
talk about
stories.
it,
Yeah, that's.
Oh God, because you like have to log out and have to log in and have to log out. Yeah, okay, yeah, like, yeah, I think like not self-servingly we can talk about Ream here, right? Because like they have all that shit, and I really wish that like we could.
Yeah, it's just that their name sounds like
kind
a
of
porn site.
It because that's what it is. Right, that's what it was. Like that's the thing. Like I think, yeah, we can talk about it later. I don't want to like bad mouth Ream because I really like what they're doing and I really like.
No, they
the website.
look great. They just need to fix the name.
Yeah, maybe they will. We'll see. Okay, cool. Well, what's a good price point? Well, there you have it. The answer is actually, didn't you tell me this, Xkarn? That like the price point doesn't really matter. It's just how good you cliff.
Yeah, price point doesn't matter. So, like, if you had 10 chapters at $10 and 10 chapters at $5, right? Like two people, the guy whoever cliffs the most is the one who's going to make the most money. Not whether or not you have $5 tier or $10 tier. It doesn't matter. Obviously, if you only have like one chapter ahead and you're trying to charge $10, it's not going to go very well.
It's kind of a scam.
Yeah, no.
But
yeah,
also,
the number of
chapters
ahead,
chapter length,
it doesn't really matter.
chapter length does matter a lot.
Yeah,
it's
chapter length does matter.
I forget who it was. Like they have like a they write like even if you write like 10,000 word chapters, people will not buy your 5-chapter advance, even though it's like 50,000 words, but they will buy the 20 chapter one where it's like 1,000 words per chapter. Which
it
is
depends on
weird.
how hard you. I could be. I mean, obviously, casual proves that's not entirely true, but I do think he may be at least a degree of an exception, just because it's proven how good the book is already. If you're newer and you're starting out, you don't have a massive following yet, and if you're trying to earn money quickly, well, first off, you probably shouldn't be in writing if you're trying to earn money quickly. But
yes.
If you need money and you're aiming to make it like a full-time job type of thing, generally, I think having a higher number of chapters does help. It's not going to make a difference. Like XK said, it's really all about the cliffs, and $5 tier just kind of Patreon kind of bites everything way too hard on that one. But I mean, having a $5 tier and a $10 tier and having people go from the 5 to the 10 is fine. $1 tier is almost pointless, and at least in my opinion. I had one for a while.
On a $1 tier, I think you make 20 cents or something.
Yeah,
from it
because like that's if anyone is confused as to why, that's because basically Patreon charges you for Xkarn and myself, and I think Farmer too. You have like a flat fee of like $1 or something, or like 50. How much? 80 cents, like something like that.
If the tier is over $1, it's a flat fee of $1. But if it's under $1, I think it's something like and then you have to pay the conversion fee if they pay in a different currency, and then you have to pay some other fee. I forgot. There's 3 fees.
The payout fee, the money handling fee. Like there's like it's just
the breathing
by the time
fee.
by the time you the fee, like by the time it gets to you, out of like $10 or like $100, by the time it gets to you, it's like 78.
No. The thing is, the more you charge, the less of it that gets eaten up by fees, if that makes sense. Because a lot of the fees are flat. Yeah. So like a $3 tier or $5 tier, terrible, but $10 tier is pretty good.
Yeah. I'm actually like legit thinking about going to Ko-fi with a podcast, because Ko-fi, you
like the tip jar and stuff.
No, like you can use Ko-fi just like as you use Patreon. It's the same thing, but
really?
you pay no fee. You pay like $5 a month. That's what you pay. You pay $5 a month.
Subscribe to Ko-fi. That's interesting.
Yep. And then like for that amount of money, they just like let you have like millions without like any transaction fees. Like They're still like you still have to pay the Stripe fee, but everything that's external, like nothing is like internal, so no money handling, no anything. I really like that, because even Ream has that thing where you the money, like the money laundering fee, the money exchange fees is kind of dumb, because like someone in Germany buys the podcast for €5. They take the money for changing it to dollars. Then I'm getting it paid out, and I'm paying again to change it back to euros. Like, that's just bullshit. Sorry, but like I don't think that's fair at all. Yep. So yeah. All right. Well, with that being said, that is the last question. Absolutely. Yep. Well, right. Like I can see your laptop tilting already, Xkarn. Like
I'm about to pass out.
Yeah, I know this. But yeah, we'll hop off. This has been it for today. It has been actually a very, very good 1 hour podcast. Any last words from anyone?
No.
Go throw money into Farmer's tip jar. He needs it.
He does. With the house prices in Canada, he needs it.
Oh, honestly,
and the taxes. Oh my god,
you, man.
Taxes.
Poor man. He's actually getting blasted.
Yeah, welcome to Germany.
48% marginal tax rate, buddy. Yeah.
55.
Bad. Oh my god. At least you can afford a house in Germany, right?
No, I got a friend who's a PhD in machine learning. Actually, PhD machine learning. Like, he builds LLMs. And he's CTO of a not small company. He can't afford a house. So, with that being said, thank you, everyone.
It's cooked.
Oh no, everything's fucked. So,
yeah.
With that being said, thank you everyone for listening and or watching. And please do check out the Patreon, and also subscribe, do the drill, do the happy dance. You know what it's all about. Thank you very much for Actus, Xkarn, and Casual for being here despite it being late and or early and or sick. So that's it. Thank you so much, and I'll see you next time.